Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday. And hope you're all feeling well. We're going to talk about a subject that's come out a lot recently on LinkedIn, in particular. And you were talking just now, Marianne, about the video that Stephen put up. Stephen Watson, isn't it? Which was brilliant the other day. If people don't follow Stephen Watson, they really should do.
Seriously.
Yeah. Don't
take
take
the message serious that's underneath it all, because there's usually a message underneath it.
Yeah, just be careful if you're somebody that struggles to read the room, or sort of sarcasm in particular. Then just be careful approaching Stephen's content, because you might think sometimes, is he seriously saying that?
I got it wrong first time.
And you did, didn't you? Yeah. And actually, that's because there's a lot of very clever nuance to what he does. But effectively, he's taken the P out of a lot of people on LinkedIn. And he does it in a very good way. But he was talking about imposter syndrome. And he was also, sort of talking about, if you're going to do it, fully commit to it. And there is a lot of this, isn't there, at the moment? There's a lot of people on platforms that are just kind of saying, well, I have, I'm not actually very good at my business, but I am good at my business. And a lot of contradiction, right? Now, don't get me wrong. There may be some people out there that really do struggle with imposter syndrome, right? We're not talking about you. We're talking about people that are using things like imposter syndrome to market their business. And quite often they don't have actual imposter syndrome, because they're actually confidently using the term imposter syndrome as a very clever marketing ploy. They're trying to wheedle you in. What do you think?
Well, my take on it, and I know that it's difficult, because I know a lot of people have done a lot of research on it as well, about actual imposter syndrome. So we've got the actual use of it and the current use of it. That I think a lot of people that ban the word around, from my experience of what I've seen and the way that I've seen it used, is that it's potentially a bit of insurance. So if somebody says, oh gosh, I've got such imposter, I've been asked to go and deliver some training. Let's just say it was me and I've been asked to deliver some training. So I would say, gosh, I've got such imposter syndrome. This is just like completely, like, there's people that are this and that and the other. Right, so I rock up, I do the training, and it goes really well. Of course it's going to. And people will say, well, of course you were going to do well. Of course you were going to do well. And I say, oh, I just didn't think I could. Gosh, so by now I've now elevated myself, because I'm like, wait, I've done better than I perceived that I would, allegedly. Then you've got the other side of it, where it went wrong. Obviously it would, but then it goes wrong. But then I'm able to say, well, it was like, I didn't feel like it was somewhere where I should have been, or where I placed myself anyway. So, well, my take on it is, if somebody asks me to do a job, whether it's paid or unpaid, doesn't really matter, that there's no imposter about it. If I've said yes to something, I'm saying yes, and I will do it to the best of my ability, which will have been that I'll have had a conversation with whoever's asked me if I will do that, whether it's doing my training, or if it's I'm an ambassador for Ronald McDonald House, so I get asked sometimes to go and do talks for that, or I go to schools and stuff like that. Do I feel an imposter? Absolutely not. There's times that I will say, and I will, right from the outset, that I will say, well, my family, we stayed there for X amount of time. There are other families that stayed there longer. So I don't claim to be anything I'm not. So I don't see where there's any imposter there, because if I was an imposter, then surely I shouldn't really have said yes.
Well, this is where I'm sit with this.
I know that there's going to be people that disagree with me on that, but
personally, you know, because I can't remember the term ever existing when I was younger.
No.
Personally,
I think it was out of your comfort zone, actually, is what it was. But
yeah, out of your comfort zone. Well, so personally, I think, and this is a very real thing, especially for anybody that does go, you know, get moments in their life that are where they become more introspective and, you know, or feel slightly isolated, or, you know, or have days where they feel blue or whatever, or suffer with them, you know, suffer with their mental health. I think we can all have times where we self-doubt. Now, that to me is imposter syndrome in a way, right? Where I am in the process of doing something, which I do, and I know that I do it well, but I have some self-doubt about it. I personally wouldn't feel the need to publicly advertise that,
no.
Right? Because I think that's, for me, that's a very private moment.
Doesn't it also, does that not also open up, for me, it would mean that those people that I'm doing whatever with or for would then doubt me. If I doubt myself, then surely I'm advertising that.
Well, you'd think that would be the case, wouldn't you?
Well, if I'm training, I always encourage trainers not to say, hopefully by the end of this.
Because, absolutely, because that's not an affirmative. You'd want them to say you will by the end of this, right? Because otherwise you haven't got your learning objectives right. Because otherwise, oh, haven't put my aims and objectives in properly. So hopefully by the end of this, you might have learned something. I don't know. If you have, then that's great. If you haven't, you're right. All of that leads into it. But yeah, I think that's, for me, that imposter syndrome thing is a very personal thing, and personally wouldn't talk if that happened. And I think we do all have days where we may sink into that and go, it's a lot at the moment, and it's probably where it's too much. And I think if people are experiencing some burnout, etc., or they you know, there's a lot going on in their lives personally and at work or whatever, sometimes it can all just feel like it's too much. There's too much to cope with or whatever. And in moments like that, I think people can genuinely feel, well, maybe I'm not, I shouldn't be doing. Well, what I'm saying is, to me, that's what kind of imposter syndrome really is, where in those private moments when you feel down about it, because and as I say, a bit out of your depth on that day or whatever, and you may need some support. You may at that time need some people who you can trust around you to say, look, Graham, you're doing a great job. You can do this. It's don't doubt yourself. You can do this, right? And that's what you know, good friends are for. That's what people that you can trust are for. Should people be putting that out on social media? Well, that's up to them, but it should it be lauded? Not necessarily so, because, you know, I understand that we're meant to come over as authentic and we're meant to kind of share and whatever, but are we meant to share stuff like that, which, as you say, could also be seen as failure, right? Because some people might look at it and go, well, actually, oh God, so if they're doubting that they've got that ability, would I go to them?
Well, I know that when I was working in a secondary school, I went for the job as a health and social care and psychology teacher. Great, right up my street, what I do. Well, I'm working in a school now, and so anyway, I get the job and I'm like, oh, fantastic. And then they said to me, actually, the need we've got this year is, it's not health and social care, we need to do sociology as well as psychology. And I'm like, I've never actually like opened a sociology book like ever. So 2 weeks later, I found myself teaching it. And I don't know again whether it's a neurodiverse thing or whether it's the way my brain works or whatever. But I took on that challenge. I looked at it and said, can I do this justice? Can I do this justice? And I did. And I did whatever I needed to do to be able to rock up, because there's no way, you cannot stand in front of a class of kids, or young people, they were sixth formers. They'll see. They will absolutely see, and they will annihilate you. So I had to show up there and be everything that they were expecting, which was somebody that knows what they're talking about, that they can trust. So they had to trust me. So if I'd have given any element of, but I'm the same as that with any of the training I do. Nobody ever will walk into a room and be trained by me with me thinking that I wasn't worthy of being there, because I won't say yes to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if some of that, in all honesty, before I had my own centre, I was freelancing for other companies. So I worked for a company. I fell into doing the teacher training, strangely, and I loved it. So I was employed. Then I was freelancing. But I always felt like I was being a bit naughty, because I was doing it the way you should. And that we were getting the results, and everybody was giving 5-star reviews, but I was doing it my way as well, which was having a sense of humour in there, which isn't always necessarily liked by the powers that be, kind of thing. And then after I was diagnosed, I always sort of felt like, I was being a bit naughty and I was going to get in trouble. So then when I started doing it on my own, I feel like then I was able to be the absolute authentic me. So it was a combination of being diagnosed, lockdown, realizing that I was a people pleaser, not actually somebody that massively liked people. I like who I like. And now I just have conviction in everything I do. And maybe that's why people will say, I completely bought into you and you were inspiring because you believe. And I said, I absolutely believe what I do. I 100% believe what I do. There's no halfway marks here or whatever, and there's no, I'm not really too sure, to the point I'll even say to people, I'm teaching you the tools. What you do with them, you know what I mean? You know that. And you then have to have conviction in what you do. So a lot of what I do is giving other people the confidence to be themselves, so they don't have that imposter syndrome. They don't have that. They shouldn't have that, because actually, if you believe in yourself and you believe in what you do, that's why I can work for anyone, because I wouldn't feel like I was being 100% me. So there is no imposter.
Yeah, it's a big subject. We'd love to hear from you, by the way.
I'm sure I will upset a lot of people there. And like you said, this isn't about people that genuinely have self-doubt. This isn't people that genuinely struggle with confidence and that kind of thing. I honestly believe there's a lot of people that say it, as you said, that are saying it as a bit of a strategy to have, is a bit of insurance. So
yeah, and the other reason that I think that it's not necessarily there is because they're not consistently talking about it as well. And you know, if 1 minute you seem to be incredibly confident at everything, and wouldn't ever seem to be the sort of person that would doubt yourself in terms of anything, and the next minute you're talking about you continually sort of have imposter syndrome or whatever. It goes back to my point that I make lots of times. People do not read social media across a period of time enough. You do not look at people's output closely enough to see the inconsistencies between what they say one day to what they say the next day.
It is, and it's not the same as being authentic. That's not the same, because I'm completely me. There isn't a filter in me. Surprise, surprise. But as you say, I would be a bit skeptical of somebody who, I will own up to the stuff I can't do. I'm like, I cannot do some things, and I can't, and I will hold my hands up and say, but I certainly wouldn't be out there making money from that thing and then let everybody know. Because if I saw somebody that was so doubting themselves one minute and so loud the other, I'd be thinking, well, who am I actually? Who am I getting here? Are you just winging? I mean, we all wing life, but there's a difference. I say, I teach as a trainer, you have to be able to wing, but I only ever wing with confidence. I wing knowing that fundamentally.
Do you know what? I struggle with the whole area of authenticity on social media as well. Full stop.
Well, as we just said on another podcast about,
I really struggle with it, because and actually I've spoken to a few musicians about this recently, and it's been quite interesting. We've spoken about the whole idea that, and they're creatives, right? That actually, can you create authenticity outside of a truly creative process, right? Or a process where you fully put your 100% of yourself into it, and therefore it's art, right? And that's a really interesting thing. I heard one of the great record producers talking about that, Rick Rubin, talking about that as well. What's the difference between sort of a commercial record and art?
Yeah.
Right. And it's easy to make a commercial record, but that isn't art, because it's effectively, it's only really art, and therefore it's only really truly authentic when only you step through that process, right? But as soon as, and I think it's the same for any of us, as soon as you put a camera up in someone's face or whatever, and make a conscious decision to, script that in some way, and then edit it in some way or whatever, it starts not being as authentic, right? And people could say, well, but it's as authentic as it can be, but you're not really. And that to me is where, and I think there's a revolution against that as well. It's quite interesting. A couple of my musician friends recently have been doing some anti-social media, which has been really great. And it actually comes across as, truly authentic. So Bride, who's been on the show, she was doing some social media where she literally was just photographing herself doing nothing to promote her album, which I just thought was lovely. She'd literally just sit there, and that would be it. And then Polly, at the moment, Polly's just Polly Paulsma has been. She's got her album coming out, and she's writing again. She's written a book, and she's writing again, and whatever. And she does this thing. Do follow her, folks, by the way, on Instagram, and join in, because it's a beautiful thing. I'll put the link in when this goes out. But she does this thing in the morning. I love it, because I come downstairs to put the kettle on, make a cup of tea, and there she is at like 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And it's just her in her room, and she'll be writing. And she, for the main part, she completely ignores the camera. She just writes. And that's it. And she'll do that for like 10 minutes. And then she'll go. And it's beautiful, because you do actually feel like you're just being let in to someone, you know, and you can see it like straining over the writing and whatever. And talking about it, I mean, for her, it's just like having the inspiration to carry on and do that on a daily basis, and knowing that people are there for her, but she doesn't feel like she's got to do anything.
It's wonderful that I feel like now, I mean, this is why doing the Tender podcast works for me, because just doing videos, I find it very difficult just to do them, just to rock up in that. I can be authentic. I'm me, you know, or, you know, this isn't edited. It is what it is. It's not polished like many other, but that is because you literally get me. People see me doing my hair just before we go. Just before we go, it doesn't actually look like I did do it, but and I think that the problem you've got now is, and we were talking about this earlier, is that it's really hard to stay actual. I'm saying actual, truly authentic, because you've got authentic, which is this. It's unfiltered, and it is what it is. Whether it's because I've reached a time in my life where who knows, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then you've got other people that are saying they're authentic, but actually, you know, something happened to me once, and somebody said to me, "Don't say anything any further about that, because so and so has got an army behind them, and more or less they could take you down." And I sat there for a few minutes, and I felt really quite angry about it all, the situation, because I quite frankly couldn't give a damn what people think about me anymore. As in, if they don't like me, that's absolutely fine. Go and watch another play or whatever. If you like me and I upset you, then I will look at, you know, I'll look at why. But I felt really angry about the fact that that could happen. That me having an opinion about something that's just my opinion about it, and wanting to get into a discussion, could be threatened. You know, so there was the two sides of me. There was the business me that was like, oh, I've got a living to make here, and there was the other side of me that's me. And it took me back maybe to being when I was younger, which was, Marianne, shh, don't. You're such a pain when you speak up. And I thought, you know, and so then having to then sort of think, oh, where am I going to sit with this, with my business? Because it's all very well being headstrong, but when you do have to, I was going to say then have an image to uphold, but actually in the end we made an image of that. The image was, I am who I am, and I do stand up for what I believe in, and what I do is I do believe in standards. So it will probably mean that there's less for now of a following, but it's about finding the right people. But I think what's sad out there is there's so many people that are so concerned with the masses seeing them, but the masses are just getting bigger. And you sort of, I sit there sometimes and I think, what the heck is all this about? What is this all about now? Everything's quick, 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 quick. You know, even with my children, I have to say to them, you know, don't necessarily believe what you read, or don't be taken in by this or that. Really think about, even my son last night asked his friend if he could come to the gym with us. And I said, well, we're not going to go for long, and I've got friends coming over from America for Christmas. And I said, I don't really want to use one of the passes up on like a 20-minute visit. I didn't mind using it on this child, but I said I'd rather we were going to the gym and then go for a swim and stuff. And he got very angry with me about it, and we had a standoff in the car for quite a long time. And because I thought I need to get to the bottom of, you know, and then in the end he said, but I'm scared that he won't like me because I've had to say no. And you know, we had a long conversation. I've worked with kids at length, you know, and I said, but really, if you think, and I don't think this is true, if he's going to not like you because you've had to say no, he's not really worth it, is he? And of course he got upset. And I said, I don't think that's really where he's at. If you want me to speak to him, I don't want you to speak to him. I don't want you to speak to him. But it was a really interesting one that I think a lot of people do it. People give people what they want to give them because that's what they feel they should. And so you've got a lot of people saying about imposter syndrome and stuff. And often all that's created because people are trying to be something they're not, because they're trying to fit in. And then you've got other people that are then making money out of trying to fix people from all this. And I think, oh my gosh, what kind of mess is it? And yet, me, what do I love doing? I absolutely love going over. Well, you always talk about my Ernie, and go in and have a cup of tea with him. You know, yesterday he had to go into hospital. I picked him up from the hospital, so he didn't have to get a taxi. I've just said I went and made his tea for him last night, and I'll go and have a cuppa later. That's real. That's proper, authentic, real. That is. We sit and we chat. He learns from me and I learn from him. And I think a lot of people could learn a lot from that. Nobody sees that. Nobody sees that on camera. Nobody sees that on social media of me. Nobody sees that, but it's real. So much now is about, we've got to have a picture to say that it happened, because otherwise, but actually some of the best learning experiences happen when I take my son for a walk. I take the dog for a walk, and he told me last night that, you know, he does a TikTok, but he does it on plane spotting. So all of his pictures are plane spotting ones. That's what they are. And he said, loads of people love my plane spotting stuff. It's not perfect. It's not great. It's, you know, and he said, I'm a Rizzler because of that. And I went, well, a Rizzler in my world is something different. I said, what is a Rizzler? It means I said I can get a date with any girl I want. I said, all right. So we have loads of conversations. I have conversations with my son in the car when I pick him up from college. People don't do enough of this stuff. I really honestly think people don't do enough of this stuff because they're so worried about working on stuff that they're not living it. They're just not, you know what I mean?
No, don't get me wrong. You see, part of my authentic world is that I like producing stuff that, you know, looks great. I like producing produced stuff. I like to produce stuff that's, you know, where I show up produced and polished sometimes, and then I like to do it in a more informal way other times, right? It would not be 100% me to show up like that day in, day out, and only ever put out completely 100% polished output. That wouldn't be me. But I enjoy doing it from time to time when I do it, because I enjoy the process of it. That is me being authentic to myself, etc. So I totally understand it. But for me, where it gets difficult is when people make things which I feel are probably much more personal to them, or should be more personal to them. They make outwardly really big things,
Yeah,
for the point of view of marketing, and I smell it as marketing.
yeah,
and I sense it as marketing, and every bone in my body that's been around for years and knows about marketing and sales and whatever can see through it as marketing. And I just think, oh, you know, big.
well, I shared a video, and you've seen it. And the irony of this, I've got to let the dog in. I'm really sorry. Doorbell just rang. Now the dog wants to come in.
There you go. She's going to go and let the dog in, folks. This is how real podcast is.
She scratches the door. She jumps up and scratches it, so I know she wants to come in. Yeah, I did a video that I didn't plan. I mean, I really did because I videoed it, but I didn't think about what I was going to do. So now the dog wants to come up. Come on. And I shared it to somebody I know, and they said, "Wow, that if ever you feel like you're not doing well at life or you're struggling or whatever, go and look at that video, because what it did, it was very, very raw in those moments or months after I'd been diagnosed, and it was very much a reflection. And you can tell, you've heard it, you can tell by my voice. Even when I look at it, I think, wow, just how much things have changed. But nobody's really interested in that, sadly, because it's not marketed in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's not. And the sad thing is that so much of the stuff that is out there, I'm going to talk about neurodiversity here as well. Also, you know, I've lost my dad to suicide. I will talk about that occasionally. It's not something I made money out of. It's not something I use it. I will talk about it when it seems relevant in something I'm talking about.
But let's just stop there, because that's the point, isn't it? You could do. And that's, in a way, that's kind of sad, isn't it? You could make money out of a tragedy like that. You could make money out of the fact that you're diagnosed with ADHD. You could make money out of it, right? There was somebody on LinkedIn who had, you know, kind of formed their business around neurodiversity, and suddenly went and got the diagnosis and went, you know, this is the most important post I'm ever going to put out on LinkedIn, and then said, I've been diagnosed. I'm ADHD. This changes everything, because this basically means that now I'm authentic. This is my brand that I created, and now me align, etc. Right? And this isn't me being bitter, right? I suspect that I'm neurodiverse, right? I am not going to go out and seek a diagnosis. And one of the reasons I am not going to go and seek a diagnosis is because actually that diagnosis, if I did get one, or if I did or didn't, it doesn't define me. It would not define me. I wouldn't let it define me at all, right? It may make me go, well, yeah, knew that, or whatever. But the point is, that isn't. And certainly, if I did, even if I did do that, do you know what? I wouldn't let anybody know.
No, but I've used it. I know for me, when I do my training, there's a lot of people it resonates with. And actually, my point being to people is, I said, yes, I did long before it became a massive thing to do it. So I almost cringe sometimes saying that, you know, mine was like 4.5 years ago, and it was during COVID. So it was very different then. People didn't talk about it as much, particularly not females, or, you know. So for me, it's again the same as I said, you know, my dad's suicide. I went through something when I was 18, and actually I helped somebody the other day who's a little bit older than that through that. So I quite like using those experiences. But it would almost be like, it doesn't define who I am, therefore I wouldn't want my business that to define me.
I would tell people if I felt that they needed to know, because it helped them know that I understand them, right?
I mean, that's the way when I do my training, I do it, because I try to get I'll do it because I'll try and explain to them probably why I forget what I'm talking about partway through a sentence. So I kind of discreetly bring it in, but actually then what I'm doing is, because for some people, depending on what sector they work in or whatever, there's a bit of shame around it. So what I try and get people to see is that just above all else, it was just own who you are. Whether you get a diagnosis or not, it really doesn't matter. The big thing for me was that it gave me, I've dropped the mouse on the floor now as well. It was that it gave me acceptance, and that I could embrace who I am. And that above all else is what my message would be to people.
Yeah.
And so I've used it for that. Really.
Don't get me wrong, folks out there. If you're listening, I am not bashing anybody that goes and gets a label or diagnosis of neurodiversity or anything else.
You're not bashing me then.
No, I'm not at all. I think it's
not.
look,
It's not about. Yeah, but it isn't.
It's not about that. It is when people blatantly use whatever it is that they've been given. It could be that they drink or they don't drink. It's whether they're married or divorced, or whether they've got a neurodiversity label or a neurotypical. Whatever it is when they use that as a cheap marketing gimmick in order to get more people to follow them, because they are then, and this then goes on the line, they are then a so-called expert in that because they've got that. I mean, even that annoys me, right? Because actually then what you get, and I'm going to mention the course that the professional course that I did recently with the local council around ADHD, right? And one of the first slides that they brought up on that thing is it was a quote that said, if you know one person with ADHD, you know one person with ADHD, right? And that's the thing, right? Because then when you start to go down that dangerous line of, because I have this, I know this about everybody that's got this.
Or because you've been on I think there's a lot. I mean, I've had people say to me, you don't seem like you've got ADHD. And I'm like, or you don't look like somebody that would lost someone to suicide. And I'm like, well, they mustn't have given me the banner or whatever, And actually, I quite like that. That there is more to me than that I lost my dad in that way. For the first few years, it was quite, it was a big thing. But we were like 22 years up the line now, And so, yes, I will use that experience to support somebody should that there be needed, that I have got that lived experience. And yes, I've done talks and stuff like that.
But you're not going to wheel it out and create a.
No. I mean, I know that even on the the Suicide Awareness Day or many of these other things that I will share that day, and then all of a sudden there's loads of people, and I think they're sort of like my cousin once removed or twice removed, and I think, oh, come on, really? You don't. Do you know what I mean? Or I will actually probably not talk about it on those days. It might be that something's happened, because that's real. I don't wheel out those. I wouldn't wheel them out. I really love the fact that I'm able to, even friends of mine, or I share things that I've done or whatever on Facebook quite often. And I love it because my friends will be like, oh my God, that's me. And I love it because I normalize it. I normalize it because I go, look, this is normal. Whatever normal is, this is my normal. And if it resonates with you, for you to feel like you're doing okay because you're you. I mean, I spoke to a lady going in the gym the other day, and a really lovely lady. She always remembers me because I've got a friend's name. And how this came up, I don't know. And it was something to do with somebody had said she was sensitive. And I said, you know the answer back to that one. And she's like, what? And I said, say to them, I thought you were a bit insensitive, but I was too polite to say. She was like, oh my gosh. And I said, a lifetime of hearing all of those things, like you talk too much. And now I would say to somebody, unless you gave me a word count that I was supposed to work to, I've said just the right amount for me. If you don't like it, I probably wasn't the person for you. But actually, you might not be the person for me. And I feel much more confident now, but it's about putting myself around the right people. And I think that's why at times social media I struggle with, because there's a lot of people that are playing the game.
Yep.
And I don't like playing a game.
And the thing is, we see it from some fairly famous influencers, and that's why it trickles down as well. A podcast that I was just in the background on the other day, it was mentioned during that podcast as well. I'm not going to say who was involved in it, just you know, so that we don't spoil the fun. But it was mentioned in there that they were talking about a very famous social media influencer, right? And they said, but basically all they do is they put truisms out there, which have been around since,
it might be the same one I'm thinking.
Since the beginning of time. And everybody just goes, yeah, so true. I can relate. Duh, that's brilliant. It's like you're not actually saying anything new. You're not actually
no, and at the end of the day, it's because they've kind of got a brand, or I mean, I heard the same, probably not the same person, but about somebody that I had thought, oh wow. I then heard the reality behind it all and was very, very disappointed, really disappointed, in fact, because the front that was being put on wasn't necessarily as it was. And I thought there's a lot of people here that are really buying into this. But also, where I think it is quite dangerous is that, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I talk to you about, how my life is affected by the way my brain works. You know, like a friend of mine says, it's about working out what makes you tick and what makes you jam. People don't, it's all like sprinkled with like stuff. But the reality is that's not how it is. You know what I mean? The reality about me, I think it was Boxing Day one year, having an absolute meltdown in the house because I just couldn't cope with the fact that nobody was doing anything. And I was like, can we either say we're doing nothing for 2 hours, or are we doing something and we label it? And they didn't understand what I was talking about. And in the end, I just had a full on meltdown because of it. But nobody talks about this stuff. Well, those people don't talk about that stuff. But that's the reality of it, is that I lose my rag when I'm overwhelmed, because that, just like a child does sometimes, because I just can't cope. That's not talked about. Is it not sexy enough or something? Or is it not, you know, and they should be. To me, those people have got a responsibility, a bit like pop stars have, a bit like reality stars. As soon as people start buying into what you're talking about, you've now got a responsibility to, you know, the same as I say about my training. I've got a responsibility to those people I'm training. It's not just rock up and then go. I have people ringing me, you know, or messaging me like, oh, I'm really stuck with this. And at times I'm away or I'm busy, and I think, do you know what? I am going to, because I can, because I know what it's like when that's the big thing for you right then. That's big. When I'm trying to do something and I can't, and I need to get hold of somebody, you know, that's massive. So I am going to be there for somebody because I've got a responsibility.
I actually decided this morning I'm going to start doing some more short form video for LinkedIn, where I'm going to dispel some of the myths of how you get better video content out there for people. I'm going to show you some of the tricks, but I'm going to do it full of sarcasm. I'm gonna overplay it as well, because I think people over egg stuff. So if you want to follow that, there'll be some tips and tricks that you can kind of pick up and use within what you do. It will get you far more views. It's all completely shallow, and you know, but feel free to use it to get more likes and more people following what you do, so that you can then make the take advantage of that, and then actually tell them something worthwhile as well.
But don't you think though that people need to, like, a lot of people that get to know, I always laugh and say that I'm the person people come back to when everything else has gone wrong. And I used to feel quite upset about that, whether it's friends, I'm talking friends as well, or business wise, people come trotting back to me and they're like, and like I said, I used to feel a bit sad about that, but actually what it says to me is I just stay as me. They think that the grass is greener or it's shinier or whatever else. But the fact is, when they come back to me, they say, we know what we're getting with you. You don't try and be anything that you're not. And what I would say to people is, just really think about those relationships you have with people, whether it's business or friendship or romantic ones, I guess. You know, really, if you present as the person you are, do you know what I mean? If you're only around people that present as, so a lot of people say to me, the reason they trust me to tell me stuff is because I'm just me. And so they don't really have to put on any airs and graces or anything. Therefore, they feel that they can be more honest. And then they like that. And I think if everybody started being like that and stopped trying to put a front up all the time, I'm pretty sure everybody would be a bit happier. And I'm pretty sure that business would be like just less superficial, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
Maybe it's age that does it to you. I don't know whether it does, but
now for anybody that's listening or watching all of this, and if you have and you've got this far through 45 minutes, you're probably our kind of people anyway. But for anybody that's just kind of suffered it and gone, oh, you're all a bit of a Debbie Downer there, aren't you? Really, you know, you're what we wanted to come on and see is like people being incredibly over the top positive and saying absolutely nothing. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not really, because
we are positive because we say it is.
We are completely positive. But some people may take this as you know, take some of this content as negative. But if I am negative about anything, it's this. Just want people to think a little bit more.
That's it. And that's not negative. That's
not negative. I just know that you out there are capable of so much more than sometimes you even allow yourself to do, right? So I just want you, kind of a New Year's resolution thing, as this will be going out towards the end of 2024. New Year's resolution for all of us. We all need to do it. Is we all need to take more responsibility for what we are putting out in terms of social media, but B, what we consume on social media. Yes, it's fine that, you know, when you get home at the end of a tired day and whatever else, that you just want to, you know, you just want to doom scroll and find the next thing. But I tell you what, here's a trick for you. Go over to Instagram or TikTok and just doom scroll. Put in fluffy cats or whatever it is that, you know, fills your fancy, and just doom scroll that, or people falling over, you know, whatever that, you know, makes you giggle, whatever. Do that for a bit, but then, you know, just give a little bit more time to actually think about if you are watching content or buying into and commenting on content of people that are just putting out path, especially on platforms like LinkedIn. Just don't let it all go to the dogs. There are people out there now who are thinking, I'm not being the Facebook police. I'm not being the Facebook police at all. I think it's great that a platform like LinkedIn has become a bit more like Facebook used to be, and Facebook has disappeared up its own backside and whatever. But I think it's great that more people are telling more real stories, and it's not like just a CV exercise anymore where people are or just, you know, people talking, you know, deep stuff about business. I think it's great that there's lots of personality in there, but please read in between the lines a little bit more, use a little bit more common sense with it all. If you'd love to join the revolution in 2025, and why wouldn't you? Because let's face it, if you're one of the people that sits on this side of the pond, right, and by that I do not mean the UK, I mean that you're in the well where you look out on a day-to-day basis onto LinkedIn and you think to yourself, I wish I could have a bit more traction, but I do want to stay true to my values. I do want to do things professionally. I do want to, you know, I do want to build within a community that's really professional. I just want some more business as well, doing what I do really, really well. Then come and join the revolution. The revolution starts at abetterwayoflife.co.uk. We have a club in there. It will cost you, this is a sales pitch, it will cost you £10 a month to join. But within that, what we want to do we want to build it equitably as well. So if you join, there's then an affiliate scheme. If you bring other people in, you will get a lion's share of that. It's a 50-50 split on that. We want to put the resources back into this so that we actually build a decent community of people who want to support each other. It's not a pod. It's it doesn't mean, it's not going to guarantee that we're going to go around supporting all of your posts and whatever. It's not about that. But I will be there. I promise I will be there. And Marianne will be there as well to support you in growing your business in 2025. Right? This is not going to make me rich. It's not going to make me suddenly move house to a big house so that I can promote that on. I'm not going to have a holiday every 6 months. I'd hate that anyway, to be honest. Marianne knows I hate taking holidays. I love it when I get there, but I find it difficult. It's not about all of the showy stuff. This is about actually creating it is a revolution. And the reason it's a revolution is because in 2025, and we're going to see even more next year, there will be a split on social media. There are going to be those people that, especially on LinkedIn, that want to get some real context back. They want to be able to use LinkedIn as a platform where they can do real business in a really professional way, right? With personality, with a bit of flair, with whatever, but they do not want to see tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of path, right? Or here's a post. I've cut my toenails this morning, right? Keep that to whatever platform, right? We don't need that on a business platform. Yes, I am sounding like the Facebook police, but it's important, right?
No, I think it's keeping it to what it. I think when you get to the point, I mean, even just this morning, I had somebody that that I was saying about how it's frustrating when you're putting content out there that's of worth to do with my business. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think there's a lot in there that people still could learn from it. Haha, I'm a teacher. But that I was saying that there's so much noise out there, and someone said, well, you need to, they don't worry about all that noise. And I said, potentially it's because you're in a different position. If to me, we're all here at the end of the day to get business. Ultimately, that's what, and if then that impacts on you getting business because you cannot get heard through all of that, I defy anybody that then says to me, it's not a problem. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not a problem for you. So don't assume that it shouldn't be a problem for anyone else, because that's not me moaning and it's not me concerning myself. I think it was that you shouldn't worry about you can't stop what other people do. And I said, but if we stop worrying about what other people do, then actually nobody's worrying about what anybody else does, if you see what I mean. And actually, yeah, I was going to show up and say it because somebody messaged me straight after they saw that comment and said, I'm absolutely with you. And it was somebody that's intelligent, and it was somebody that's business minded. It's somebody that, that said, I'm not a loud person either. And yes, it's really difficult. So yeah, I would definitely say that for people that have made it or they've got their following, the world's a very different place when you've already got that and you're not worried about who sees your content. Well, of course you're not, because if you're getting work anyway, but if you're trying to be seen, yeah, it is. And I'm not alone with this, but it is very frustrating when you see other people putting that out. And you can't get heard. But I'd also say for people to open these a bit more.
And we want you involved. And what we will not want you to do is change who you are. That's the important thing. We in fact, if you disagree with us when we put stuff out and whatever, we want you to disagree with us. We are not going to police anything, right? What we will do is support you, right? Because people that are doing a great job need to be seen. And on that bombshell, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much look, we managed to fill an hour talking about all of that great stuff without even rattling the cage.
I didn't swear either. I didn't swear.
And we definitely didn't swear. Folks, have a fantastic Christmas. Eat too much, open lots of prezzies, do whatever you need to do. But remember that with great Christmas comes great responsibility. Just think about that for a minute. And we will see you on the other side.